Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are not just looking at a business deal. We are looking at a tectonic shift. I'm talking about the kind of earthquake that hits Hollywood maybe once in a generation, if that. This is the kind of story that changes not just the financial ledgers, but literally dictates where you sit, what you pay, and how you feel when you watch your favorite movies for the next 20 years.
It really is a fascinating moment. We often talk about disruption in this industry as a buzzword, something that happens incrementally. But this is the board being flipped over. The pieces are moving, the stakes are incredibly high, and frankly, the outcome is going to redefine the entertainment landscape.
Exactly. So let's not bury the leader. Here is the headline that has absolutely stopped everyone in their track. From the studio lots in Burbank to the boardrooms in Wall Street. Netflix, yes, the company that convinced us all to stay home.
Yeah, that Netflix.
Has officially put in an all-cash offer to acquire the film and studio assets of Warner Bros.
It is massive. And just to be crystal clear for everyone listening, because there's always so much gossip in this town, this isn't a rumor, this isn't a sources say leak about a lunch. This is a formal all-cash offer on the table.
But they aren't the only ones at the party.
Yeah.
Right. It's not like they just walked in and took the keys. We have a bit of a duel happening.
We do. It is a classic high-stakes bidding war. On one side, you have Netflix, the tech giant, the disruptor. On the other side, you have Paramount. And Paramount has been the other major player circling these assets for a long time. They're the legacy player, the traditional studio trying to bulk up.
So our mission for this deep dive is to cut through all the noise and the speculation. We need to unpack the specific mechanics of this new all-cash deal from Netflix. We need to figure out why they are specifically excluding the discovery side of the business.
It's a huge deal.
Which, by the way, feels like a massive plot twist in itself.
It's a huge twist, and it changes the math entirely.
Right. And speaking of math, we need to answer a very confusing question for the average observer. Why might Netflix's sticker price, which is technically lower, actually be a significantly better deal for shareholders than the higher price Paramount is offering?
That is the billion-dollar question. Because on paper, one number looks bigger. If you just look at the headlines, you might think the board is crazy. But in high-level finance, as in life, context is everything. We are going to be looking at reports regarding the financial breakdowns, share prices, regulatory hurdles, and transcripts that discuss how this massive company might be split in two.
Okay, let's get into the weeds on this. Because usually, let's say I'm selling my car. If you offer me $30,000 and your neighbor offers me $27,000, I'm not thinking about context. I'm taking the $30,000 and I'm going to dinner.
Right.
But you're telling me it is not that simple here.
And not even close. You have to look at the quality of the money, not just the quantity. So let's look at the headline numbers first. Netflix's new offer is $27.75 per share, and it is all cash.
Okay, $27.75. Got it. Cash in hand.
Now compare that to Paramount's standing offer, which is approximately $30 per share.
Right. So doing the basic math, Paramount is offering about $2.25 more per share. If I'm a shareholder sitting there with my portfolio, I'm looking at that and thinking, show me the money. Why is the board even entertaining the lower offer? Are they just charmed by the Netflix brand?
No, it's not about charm. It comes down to a concept called enhanced certainty. You have to look at what that money is.
Enhanced certainty. Okay.
Netflix originally had a deal structure that involved some stock, specifically a $4.50 stock element. They looked at the market, they looked at the volatility, and they removed that. They adjusted the deal to move to a pure, cold, hard cash.
So they essentially said, we'll take out the fluctuating stock part and just give you guaranteed cash.
Yeah.
Why does that matter so much to a shareholder?
Because stock prices move. I mean, it's that simple. If I promise you $30, but $5 of that is in stock and the market crashes tomorrow, or maybe the reception to the deal is bad and the stock tanks, I'm actually paying you $25 or $24. Cash is immune to that Sources describe this move by Netflix as eliminating market-based variability. It's a way of locking in value regardless of what the Dow Jones does.
Okay, that makes sense for the Netflix side. It's safe. But what about Paramount? Why is their $30 less certain? Is it just because it includes stock?
It's more than that. Paramount's deal is messy. Get to that number. They are, cobbling together financing from various sources. They're taking on significant debt to make this happen.
Yep. Okay.
And when you have a deal reliant on debt financing, you have third parties involved. Banks, private equity, lenders. Interest rates can shift. The cost of borrowing can go up, eating into the value.
I see. It's the difference between someone walking into an open house with a suitcase full of cash versus someone saying, I love this house. I just need to call 3 different banks, leverage my current house, and ask my rich uncle to co-sign the loan.
That is a perfect analogy. And as a seller, who do you trust more? With Paramount, There is a legitimate risk that the money might not actually be there at the finish line, or that the debt load becomes so unmanageable that the deal collapses under its own weight before it closes.
Whereas with Netflix,
The money is essentially sitting in the checking account. It's ready to go.
there's also the time factor, right?
Yeah.
I imagine in these mega mergers, time isn't just a waiting game, it's a risk factor.
Absolutely. In the corporate world, speed is value. The Netflix deal provides a much faster pathway to a shareholder vote. We're hearing reports that this could happen as early as April.
Wow, April. That is incredibly fast for a merger of this size. Usually we hear about these things dragging on for 18 months, 2 years.
It is remarkably fast. Now, compare that to Paramount.
Yeah.
Because their structure is so complex, merging 2 legacy studios, dealing with the debt restructuring, figuring out which assets go where, they have to get all their ducks in a row before they can even ask for a vote.
Which takes time.
That leads to a much longer time. And the longer a deal drags on, the more opportunity there is for it to fall apart. Markets change, laws change, geopolitical events happen, time kills.
So shareholders are weighing 2 things. A hypothetical, $30 that might take a year to arrive and has a decent chance of vanishing into thin air. Or a guaranteed $27.75 that could be in their bank account by spring.
Exactly. It's the bird in the hand principle applied to billions of dollars. And when you were talking about this much money, certainty carries a premium, a really big.
Okay, so that covers the cash versus complexity aspect. I get why the lower offer is competitive now, but here's where it gets really interesting. The structure of what they are actually buying. Netflix isn't buying the whole house. They're buying the living room, the kitchen, but they're leaving the garage.
And that's one way to put it, though the garage, in this case, makes billions of dollars too. Netflix has made it very clear. They want the Warner Bros. Film studio, the movie assets, and the DC properties, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, the Harry Potter franchise. That fits their model, of course. That's the crown jewel IP.
They need premium, scripted IP to drive subscription. What they do not want is the discovery side. They don't want the reality TV, the unscripted content, the cable news networks.
So Shark Week, Guy Fieri, 90 Day Fiancé, those are not going to Netflix.
You're right. And neither is Anderson Cooper or the CNN breaking news desk. The deal involves spinning off the Discovery Assets Discovery Channel, TNT, CNN, Food Network, into a completely separate standalone company. The sources are calling this entity Discovery Global.
I love the analogy one of our sources used for this. They called it a pocket universe.
It fits perfectly. It really does.
Basically, the shareholders who love the unscripted stuff or the news side get to keep that specific company separate from the Hollywood studio drama. It creates this little pocket universe where those assets can live and breathe without being suffocated by the films.
Exactly.
But how does that work for the shareholder? If Netflix buys the studio, do I lose the value of the Discovery stuff? No, and this is where the math gets really fascinating and why the lower Netflix bid is actually accepted. Remember that $2.25 gap we talked about?
Yeah, the difference between the $27.75 and the $30.
Right. Well, in the Netflix deal, shareholders get the $27.75 cash for the studio assets. Plus, they keep their shares in this new Discovery Global company. They aren't losing those assets. They are just moving them to a different pocket.
Oh, I see. So it's $27.75 plus whatever the value of the new Discovery company is. It's not either situation.
Exactly. And the sources provided some specific valuation breakdowns for the spinoff. It's not just guess. Advisors applied 3 different metrics to value Discovery Global.
Okay.
The low estimate, very conservative, came in at $1.33 per share. The high estimate was $3.24 per share.
Okay, let me do some quick mental math here.
Yeah.
If we take the low estimate, $1.33, and add it to the cash offer of $27.75, we are at roughly $29.08. That is practically neck and neck with the Paramount offer, right?
Right there. It pretty much erases the gap. And if you take the high estimate of $3.24, you are well over $30. You're looking at almost $31 in total value.
So the lower bid might actually be the higher bid.
It very well could be, once you account for the value of the spinoff company you still own.
And that's not even the best part. I was reading this in the notes. There was a detail in the proxy filings about a buyout kicker. What is that?
This is crucial for the long-term investor. This is the real cherry on top. The filings suggest that if Discovery Global is sold to a third party later, say, another media giant wants just the unscripted stuff, or a private equity firm wants the cash flow from CNN and Food Network, the value could skyrocket.
How much?
To as much as $6.86 per share.
Whoa. So let's reframe this. It's $27.75 guaranteed cash now, plus a potential $6.86 later. That puts the total value way, way higher than anything Paramount is offering.
Precisely. It allows shareholders to double dip in a way. They cash out on the studio assets now, the diamond, but they retain the upside potential of the Discovery assets, the gold, for a
I like that.
With Paramount, you're just handing over the diamonds and the gold for a single price. Lose that.
So to simplify, Netflix is saying, we will pay you for the fancy jewelry and you can keep the gold bullion to sell whenever you want. Whereas Paramount is saying, we'll buy the whole jewelry box right now for a flat fee.
That is a very apt comparison. And for a shareholder looking at maximum value extraction, separating the diamonds from the gold seems to be the smarter play. It gives you optionality.
Now, let's talk about how this actually happens physically or, well, corporately. Because splitting a company isn't like tearing a piece of paper in half. It's messy. You have contracts, employees, real estate, IT systems.
It is incredibly complex. I mean, think about it. Unwinding a merger that happened just a few years ago is no small. But this is another area where the Netflix plan has a strategic advantage regarding
Right, the timeline.
Under the Netflix plan, the split of Discovery happens before Netflix takes over. There is a 6 to 9 month window where they execute this pocket universe strategy. They essentially clean up the house beforehand.
So they create the separation before the new owners move in. That makes sense.
Exactly. Now, compare that to the risk with Paramount. Paramount wants to buy the whole thing. But let's say the Paramount deal drags on for a year, regulatory delays, financing issues, maybe the market turns, and then at the 11th hour, it falls apart.
Which, as we know, happens all the time in these mega. They aren't binding until the ink is dry and the government stamps it.
Right. If that happens with Paramount, Warner Bros., Discovery is back to square one. They have wasted a year. And if they decide they still need to spin off Discovery because the company is too big, they have to start that process from scratch.
That sounds like a nightmare. You've lost time, you've lost momentum, and you probably have to pay lawyers a fortune to unwind the mess.
The source mentioned that Paramount would have to pay a cancellation fee. Sure, there's a breakup, but the time lost is the real cost. In this industry where streaming trends change every 6 months, losing a year of strategic maneuvering is devastating. You can't get that year back.
But with the Netflix deal,
yeah.
If that falls apart.
With the Netflix deal, even if the acquisition hits a snag later, the spin-off process is already underway. They are actively separating the companies during that. So, worst case scenario, if the Netflix deal collapses for some, Warner Bros. Is still left with 2 separate cleaner companies, Discovery Global and the Stand.
Which was probably the right strategic move anyway.
It arguably was. So it's a win-win, or at least a fail-safe option. You get the outcome you need regardless of whether the sale closes.
It's a much more robust strategic position for the Warner Bros. Board.
Absolutely.
Okay, moving on from the boardroom math to the actual movie. This is what the fans care about. There's a massive culture clash potential here. Netflix is the streaming guy. Warner Bros. Is the cinema guy. Can Netflix actually run a movie studio?
This is the source of a lot of anxiety in Hollywood right now. You have to understand, Warner Bros. Is the studio. Okay. They celebrated their centennial recently. They are the home of Casablanca, Harry Potter, The Dark Knight, Barbie. Their DNA is theatrical.
And Netflix's DNA is the algorithm.
Their DNA is subscription growth, not box office receipts. They have historically been viewed as anti-theatrical.
But Ted Sarandos, the co-CEO of Netflix, has reportedly made some promises, right? To assuage these fears that they're just going to turn the water tower into a server room.
He has. To get this deal sweetened, Sarandos has agreed to a 45-day theatrical window for Warner Bros. Movies.
Okay, 45 days. That's pretty standard these days, isn't it? Post-pandemic, that's what most studios are doing. Universal does it. Disney does it sometimes. It's not the 90-day window of the old days, but it's real theaters.
It is the current industry. But the experts and the people in the town are looking at this with a very skeptical eye. The phrase that keeps coming up is wait and see.
Meaning, sure, you say that now to get the signature, but what about 2 years from now when the contract is dusty?
Exact. Sarandos is a pragmatic guy. He's a businessman. The analysis here is that this promise is likely a tool to get. Once they own the assets, the profit motive will take. There's no legal requirement for them that promise forever if it's money.
So if they release the next Batman movie in theaters and it makes $1 billion,
then they will keep doing it. Netflix likes money. If theatrical releases prove to be a massive profit center, they aren't going to turn that down just out of ideological stubbornness. They will happily take the box office cash.
But if they release a movie and it breaks even or flop?
Then we likely see a reversion to their traditional model, straight to streaming, or very, and that is the fear that the legacy of Warner Bros., the studio that built Hollywood, just becomes a content farm for the Netflix algorithm.
That Dune Part 3 might premiere on your phone.
That's the nightmare scenario for a lot of filmmakers.
It is worth noting, as our sources pointed out, that Netflix really lacks experience here. I mean, what have they done theatrically? They've dipped their toes in, but they haven't dived.
Very little. They've done limited runs. The source mentioned things like Glass Onion getting a week in theaters.
Which left a lot of money on the table. if I recall. The theaters were begging for it to stay longer because people wanted to see it with a crowd.
They were, and Netflix pulled it because they wanted to drive subscribers. That was a clear signal of their priorities. Their priority was the platform, not the box office.
Right.
They've done special events for Stranger Things, or maybe some K-pop concert films like Demon Hunters.
Right, but those are marketing events, essentially. They aren't wide global theatrical rollouts for blockbuster franchise.
Precise. They lack the infrastructure. They don't have the historical data that a legacy studio like Paramount or Warner Bros. Had. Paramount knows how to book screens in Iowa and Mumbai. They know how to negotiate splits with AMC and Regal. They have relationships with theater owners that go back 50 years.
And Netflix knows.
Netflix knows how to make you click play on your couch. Those are fundamentally different skill sets.
It's like a software company buying a chain of fine dining restaurant. Sure, they know business, but do they know how to run a kitchen during the dinner rush? Do they know how to source the ingredients?
That is a great way to put it.
Right.
And that's the gamble Hollywood is taking. Will Netflix learn the theatrical business, or will they try to force the theatrical business to fit the Netflix model?
This brings us to the other big hurdle, arguably the biggest, the government, antitrust, the big scary regulators in Washington.
The regulatory battlefield, if you will. This is where the difference between Paramount and Netflix becomes stark.
Because Paramount is already a legacy media giant. They're already one of the big guys.
Paramount comes with what we might call baggage. Imagine trying to merge Paramount and Warner. You have massive, both own major news network, CNN.
Right.
Both have major historic studio lots. Both have competing streaming services, Paramount Plus and Max.
And usually, when companies with that much overlap try to merge, the government steps in and says, not so fast, this looks like a monopoly.
Correct. Look at the Disney-Fox merger a few years ago. That was a bloodbath in terms of regulatory hurdles. They had to sell off the regional sports networks. They had to divest assets to get approval. Paramount would likely face a similar nightmare.
It'd be forced to sell off parts of the company just to make the deal legal.
Which creates uncertainty. You don't know what the company will look like on the other side. You might end up with a Franken.
Yeah, that's a mess.
It creates a lot of uncertainty. Now look at Netflix.
Netflix is the new kid on the block, relatively speaking.
Relatively speaking, yeah. And in terms of physical assets, they are clean. Netflix doesn't own a major broadcast news network yet. They don't own a historic studio lot in Burbank. They are primarily a distribution platform.
So from a regulatory standpoint, Netflix buying Warner Bros. Is actually simpler.
Much simpler. There is less overlap. They aren't reducing competition in the news space because they aren't in the news space. They aren't reducing the number of major studios significantly in the same way because they don't produce the same volume of theatrical content.
Wait, I need to clarify something from the notes here. Okay. The source mentioned something about Netflix gaining CNN, but we also talked about CNN being spun off.
Yeah.
How do we square that?
It's a nuanced point. So if Netflix were to buy the whole company, lock, stock, and barrel, they would gain CNN. And ironically, that might even be allowed because they don't have a competitor like Fox News or MSNBC. They could argue, hey, we don't do news, so buying CNN doesn't reduce competition. But in this specific deal structure, the Pocket Universe strategy, they're actively spinning off the news assets anyway.
So they are double insulating themselves. They don't have the overlap to begin with, and D, they're getting rid of the confusing assets before the purchase.
Exact. It makes the path to regulatory approval much. They are presenting a very clean deal to the government. We are a streaming company buying a movie. We are not touching the news. We are not touching the cable channels. We aren't creating a monopoly in any single sector. Very smart strategy.
However, it's not entirely smooth sailing. There is the Trump factor.
Yeah. Former President Donald Trump has signaled distrust of the deal. And in the modern era, the political landscape is always a wild card.
The source mentioned he said it would be a major factor. Why? Is it personal or policy?
It's hard to say for sure. The source describes Netflix as having a reputation for leaning left culturally, at least in the eyes of some critics. Whether that is based on business logic or political sentiment, it adds a layer of Even if the antitrust math works out perfectly, political pressure can slow things down. The DOJ can be influenced by the administration's tone. If the administration decides big tech is too big, Netflix becomes a target.
And we can't forget the lawyers.
Yeah.
Paramount isn't going down without a fight. They aren't just going to take their ball and go home.
No, they are threatening to sue. They are looking at filing in Delaware court regarding the deal-making process. They feel they are being unfairly sided.
Essentially, we had a deal on the table, and you're ignoring us for this other guy.
Which is a standard tactic in these bidding. They want to force the board's hand or at least delay the Netflix deal. They want to create enough noise that the shareholders get nervous, but it does add to the complexity.
So let's look at how the people involved are react. What is the vibe from the leadership?
Well, David Zaslav, the CEO of Warner Bros. Discovery, is framing this in very grand terms. He's calling it the combination of two of the greatest storytelling.
Selling the vision. He
is. And frankly, he's probably relieved to find a solution for the debt problem. His legacy has been tied to fixing the balance sheet, and this fixes it in one fell swoop.
And Sarandos?
Ted Sarandos at Netflix is emphasizing the best outcome for stockholder. He's focused on the financial certainty we discussed earlier, all business.
And the board.
This is key. The Warner Bros. Discovery Board reportedly unanimously supports the Netflix transaction.
Unanimous. That's a strong signal. Usually you have one or two dissenters.
It is. It suggests that when they looked at the debt, the complexity and the risk of the Paramount deal versus the cash and clean structure of the Net deal, the choice was clear to them. They didn't see it as a close call.
But Hollywood,
Yeah.
the town itself, the writers, the directors, the agents,
Yeah.
they aren't popping champagne, are they?
No. The general sentiment in Hollywood is anxiety. Consolidation is scary. It usually means job cuts, it means redundancies, it means fewer places to pitch your script. If there are only 3 buyers left in town, you have less leverage. As whether it's Paramount or Netflix, the industry is shrinking.
But the status quo just wasn't an option, was it? The company was struggling.
No. Warner Bros. Discovery, as it currently exists, is carrying too much debt. It cannot survive as something had to give. The balloon was going to pop one way or another. This is just determining how it pops.
So pulling this all together, if we connect this to the bigger picture, it feels like we are watching the end of the streaming war and the beginning of the great consolidation.
That is exactly what this is. The era of everyone launching their own service, Peacock, Paramount plus Max, Disney plus Apple, that gold rush is over. Now, the big fish are eating the medium fish. We are moving toward a world with maybe 3 or 4 giant apps on your TV rather than 20.
Let's summarize the verdict here. Paramount offers a higher sticker price, but it comes with a mortgage, a lot of regulatory baggage, and a timeline that stretches out to the horizon.
And Netflix offers slightly less cash up front, but it's guaranteed cash. It's a cleaner regulatory path. And crucially, it offers that strategic. It allows shareholders to sell the studio to Netflix, but keep the Discovery Global company, effectively betting that those assets will be worth even more on their own.
It's a bet on cash and speed versus a bet on a messy, complex merger.
And right now, it looks like cash and speed are winning.
So for you listening, why should you care about billionaires swapping assets? Because this determines the future of your entertainment diet. It determines if the next Superman movie is a global theatrical event that you line up for, or if it drops on a Tuesday on your iPad.
It determines if the news and reality TV landscape gets swallowed up by a conglomerate or gets a chance to stand on its own and innovate. It really matters.
Here's a final thought. We talk about Netflix's wait-and-see approach to theaters. Imagine that Netflix acquires a legacy studio. They look at the books, they realize that people love going to the movies, and that it makes a ton of money.
Right.
Could we see the irony of the century? Could the company that disrupted the movie theater experience, the company that made Netflix and chill a household phrase, end up being the one that saves the movie theater industry purely because they did the math and realized it was profitable?
Or do they decide the margins are too thin, the business is too old-fashioned, and they turn the iconic Warner Bros. Water tower into a giant server farm?
That is a terrifying image. But hey, that's show business. Thanks for listening to this deep dive. We'll be watching the ticker tape and the box office results closely on this one. Until next time.